Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and today I want to talk to you about video game weapons. Awesome video game weapons, in fact. Awesome video game weapons that actually ruin the game, in fact. You see, this is the problem. Sometimes you can get a weapon or item that is so ludicrously overpowered that they actually make the video game worse. I mean, this god-killing piece of weaponry is making short work of every big bad that even looks at you wrong. So of course it's going to change the feel of the game entirely. But that's not to say that they weren't fun, do not get me wrong, it's just, unfortunately, while they were awesome, they kind of made their video games a bit worse for the long run. So with this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 awesome weapons that actually made video games a bit worse. Number 10, the flamethrower, The Last of Us. The Last of Us is undeniably a masterclass of anxiety-soaked tension and agonizing suspense, but it's also fair to say that the game mitigates much of the intended stress by gifting players a massively useful weapon in its final third act. Upon reaching the game's university level, Joel comes across a homemade flamethrower, which is extremely useful at dealing with the array of infected enemies that you encounter for the next few hours of the game. More than anything, it makes crowd controls a complete cakewalk. Hordes of the infected can now be reduced to piles of smouldering ash with just a few pumps of the flamethrower, and that severely dials down the game's white-knuckle terror factor. This is especially true in the case of the gigantic boss enemies, the bloaters, which while initially intensely fierce and challenging obstacles are now rendered relatively minor inconveniences thanks to the flamethrower. Now granted, the weapon is admittedly taken away from players for most of the game's final section, but you still have access to it for a good while before that. And for his part, the game's creative director Neil Druckmann eventually admitted that the flamethrower was actually a late addition to the game, and the team spent a lot of time debating how powerful it should be. And it seems to be that they made it just that little bit too powerful as a result. Number 9, Ropecaster, Horizon Zero Dawn. The world of Horizon Zero Dawn is filled with dozens of brilliantly innovative weapons, but there's one which proves so hilariously effective that some players have actually made the conscious decision not to use it. We're talking, of course, about the Ropecaster, a ranged weapon which can be fired at machine foes, in turn pinning them to the ground and allowing the player to either override them or kill them with relative ease. It's especially useful for taking down larger enemies such as the Thunderjaw and Stormbird, and makes the player so capable of keeping control of the battlefield during hectic fights that it arguably reduces combat to just a pure cakewalk. Though the Ropecaster eats through your resources like nobody's business, it substantially nerfs the difficulty of almost every significant enemy in the game, especially if you use the Lodge Ropecaster, and makes Aloy's ultimate victory feel a little less earned as a result. Number 8, the Wrench, BioShock. The wrench is BioShock's sole melee weapon, which the player picks up in the opening moments of the game, and while most starter weapons tend to be relatively weak until the player picks up something better, in this case, it actually has the potential to be the strongest damn weapon in the entire game. By using the right combination of tonics and plasmids, the wrench can deliver the most damage per second of any weapon in BioShock and kill every single enemy in just a single hit, bar the big daddies of course, because there's no messing with a big daddy. This peculiar lack of balance has led some players to completing wrench-only runs of the game, underlining just how hilariously overpowered the starting weapon truly is. Its immense potential power is pitted against the fact that ultimately playing wrench-only is actually a bit boring. By using it exclusively, you're simply denying yourself the absurd number of more entertaining combat options available to you through this game. Yet still, it's definitely been done, and it is massively overpowered. Number 7, Model 1887 Akimbo, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The multiplayer-centric nature of the Call of Duty franchise makes weapon balancing of paramount importance, so fans quickly cried foul when Modern Warfare 2 launched with surely the most outrageously OP weapon in the series' history, the Model 1887. Now, the Model 1887 is the final shotgun that's unlocked throughout the game, and at release it was by far Modern Warfare 2's most powerful weapon due to both its incredible range and the player's ability to equip it akimbo, effectively allowing for double damage. As a result, the Model 1887 basically acted like a shotgun sniper rifle, and I don't need to tell you why that is a bad thing. Eventually a patch came out which nerfed it completely, decreasing the effective range dramatically. But as amusing as it was to use the 1887s against enemies, it was ultimately the worst to have it used against you. So yeah, it kind of had to go. Number 6. D-Dog, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5 is in some ways a victim of its own expansive accessibility, because the stealth action game gives players such an insane arsenal of weapons and gadgets that it leaves little to be truly challenged by. Of the many abilities and buddy characters who make the game easier, there's nothing and nobody more game-breaking than D-Dog, Venom Snake's adorable and loyal canine companion. D-Dog can be used to spot, distract, stun, and kill soldiers, while also detecting useful and dangerous items in the vicinity, and can even use Fulton balloons to extract prisoners and enemies. He's basically a walking Swiss Army knife in a dog. And while it is amazing to have this on your side, it does make the game a lot easier. Yeah, it's somewhat unbalanced in fact. So yeah, while he is a good boy, he's pretty bad for the game experience. Number 5. The Redeemer, Unreal Tournament. The Redeemer is without question the most powerful weapon in the Unreal franchise, a portable nuke launcher which players can find scattered in short supply around the game's maps. Basically, the Redeemer is the prototypical instance of a willfully overpowered weapon, given that it will not only melt anyone in the general vicinity of its huge impact radius, but it can even be remotely piloted to its target. But as anyone who's played the Unreal Tournament's Capture the Flag map facing worlds can attest, the Redeemer too often distracts from the actual objective-based gameplay loop, as games tend to devolve into a repetitive scramble to grab and fire the weapon first. Unsurprisingly, many players took to banning the Redeemer from matches due to how dramatically it affected the flow of play, even if it is undeniably fun to rack up a monster kill with the weapon. But being on the constant receiving end of it though, yeah, it's not so much fun. Number 4. P19 Machine Gun, Resident Evil 7. Though the majority of Resident Evil 7 is a masterpiece of grim unease, all the more so if played in VR by the way, Capcom sadly undermined their own efforts in the final few hours of the title when the player is given access to the P19 machine gun. During the game's tanker sequence where the player controls Mia, they're able to unlock the P19, which while lacking the pure stopping power of some other weapons in the game, touts a staggering damage per second due to its faster rate of fire. Furthermore, the game doles out an almost comical amount of ammo to players, ensuring that the terror of those earlier encounters against the molded is massively diminished. Unless you're badass enough to play on Madhouse difficulty at least, but then again, you'd have to be mad to do that. The tanker section is an unfortunate lull from the game which it never really recovers from, with the more pared-down suspense of the earlier hours replaced with forgettable shoot-'em-up schlock, and it's made all the easier with the P19. Number 3. Rhino, Ratchet & Clank. Throughout the Ratchet & Clank series, the various iterations of the Rhino, or Rip Ya a New One, have taken the word overpowered to previously unimaginable realms, with the missile launcher capable of both clearing entire rooms and making short work of otherwise fierce bosses in record time. Though the entire point of the Rhino is to be as OP as possible, it's also at the expense of any sense of challenge whatsoever. Even if players simply opt to not use the Rhino, knowing that it exists as a safety net for some of the series' tougher boss fights changes how they will go into those fights psychologically speaking. As much as Ratchet & Clank doesn't live or die by its difficulty or its dread-soaked suspense, toning the Rhino down a tad wouldn't be such a bad thing, even if it costs so bloody much in the first place. Number 2. Attractions, Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 somewhat controversially introduced attractions, cinematic-style attacks capable of dealing colossal amounts of damage to enemies. Though pretty neat the first few times that you pull them off, their ridiculously destructive power combined with the ease with which they can be accidentally triggered, and also the inability to turn them off on all but the highest difficulty, left many fans feeling that Square Enix had kind of over-egged the combat. While creative and quite gorgeously animated, they quickly became tiresome as they massively break the flow of battle, temporarily reducing it all to a button-mashing exercise and making an already easy game, well, a sheer breeze. Clearly their presence should have been dialed back massively throughout, or better yet saved solely for the game's more epic boss battles. And number 1, the Farsight XR-20, Perfect Dark. But you know what, even though we've detailed some massively overpowered weapons on this list, none of them can quite match to the over-empowering insanity of Perfect Dark's Farsight XR-20, a weapon that is so potent that it basically feels like a parody of every other weapon we've detailed so far. Not only is the Farsight a railgun capable of killing any unshielded enemy in a single hit, it could also fire through bloody walls. And better still, its secondary mode can actively track targets through walls, effectively giving players a mild aim assist on top of all of the other aforementioned advantages. The mild trade-off here was that the X-ray sight made it impossible to spot players in your immediate vicinity, but given the fact that this weapon has ludicrous power and literal scope, it was a no-brainer regardless. The Farsight is ultimately a weapon that eradicates any sense of single-player challenge, while kind of also ruining friendships on the multiplayer aspect. It's a creative piece of kit, no question, but one which should have never been put in players' hands. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 awesome weapons that actually made the games a bit worse. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, my personal gaming channel where I stream every single Wednesday and Sunday. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. We detailed today a lot about awesome weapons that kind of made the video games worse. But you know what, my friend? There is always one weapon in your arsenal that can make your day better, and that is just being bloody kind to yourself. You deserve love, happiness, and success. We all do. So why not give yourself some time? Take a step out from your day-to-day and just be at one with yourself. Ask yourself, are you okay? Ask yourself if you need help, and remember that you are not alone throughout any of this. Friends, family, professionals in the support industry, these are people that care about you and can help you on your way to living a healthier and happier life. Big love from me to you, you massive ledge. Now go out there and smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.